All this expensive technology just to watch birds nobody cares about. What Mom said while breaking into my cabin. Initial post. I never thought I'd be writing something like this, but after 30 years of carrying this weight, I need to get it out somewhere. I'm Marcus, a wildlife biologist specializing in endangered bird species conservation in the Pacific Northwest. It's taken me years to recognize that what I experienced growing up wasn't normal, and even longer to understand why I still flinch when someone compliments my work. My mother, Diana, has been a life coach for the past 15 years. She built her entire brand around helping people unlock their inner magnetism and become the most charismatic version of themselves. She has over 50,000 followers on various platforms, runs weekend workshops that cost $2,500 per person, and has even written a self-published book called The Charisma Code: Why Some People Have It and Others Don't. Growing up, I was apparently in the others don't category. From the time I was old enough to remember, my mother would introduce me to people with qualifiers. This is Marcus, my quiet one, or Marcus is more of a behind-the-scenes type of person, or my personal favorite, Marcus makes up for his lack of charisma with his book smarts. When I was 12 and won the state science fair with a project on local watershed contamination, she told the newspaper reporter who came to interview us that Marcus found his niche in science because it doesn't require the people skills that other fields do. My younger sister Sophie was born when I was 2, and from the moment she could walk and talk, she was everything my mother valued. Outgoing, photogenic, comfortable being the center of attention. By the time Sophie was in middle school, Mom was managing her nascent social media presence. By high school, Sophie was a micro-influencer. Now, at 28, she has 800,000 followers across platforms and makes a living posting lifestyle content, sponsored beauty products, and day-in-my-life videos. I went the opposite direction. I threw myself into my studies, got a full scholarship to study biology, completed my PhD in ornithology at 27, and now work for a conservation organization studying critically endangered bird species. I've published 12 peer-reviewed papers, helped establish 2 new protected habitats, and my research on climate change impacts on nesting patterns was cited in a recent UN environmental report. None of that matters to my mother. Last Christmas, at our family dinner, Mom spent 45 minutes talking about Sophie's recent brand partnership with a sustainable fashion company. When my aunt asked about my work, I started explaining our breakthrough in understanding migration pattern disruptions, but Mom interrupted to say, Marcus's work is very important, but it's not exactly dinner table conversation, is it? Sophie, tell Aunt Carol about your trip to Bali. I've been in therapy for 2 years now, slowly unpacking all of this. My therapist helped me recognize that my mother's treatment wasn't just favoritism, it was a form of emotional abuse. The constant undermining, the public humiliation disguised as loving observations, the way she'd weaponize her life coaching expertise to diagnose my confidence issues while being the primary cause of them. 3 months ago, I achieved something I'd worked toward for 5 years. Using a small inheritance from my grandmother, who, notably, always saw through my mother's behavior and left her money directly to Sophie and me, bypassing Mom entirely, I purchased a remote 15-acre property in the Cascade Mountains. It includes a small cabin that I've converted into a research station. The location is perfect. It's in a critical habitat zone for 3 endangered bird species I study, has a clear creek running through it, and is remote enough that I can conduct long-term behavioral studies without human interference. I've spent every weekend and vacation day there, setting up monitoring equipment, building observation blinds, and creating what will be a landmark longitudinal study site. My organization is thrilled. This kind of dedicated research station is rare in our field, especially one funded independently. We're already seeing incredible data, including documentation of behavior never before recorded in one of the species. Which brings me to why I'm writing this post. Yesterday, my mother called me with her special tone, the one she uses when she's about to ask for something while making it sound like she's doing me a favor. She started with 5 minutes of vague compliments about my little science project, before getting to the point. Marcus, darling, I've been talking with Sophie, and she's going through a really difficult time right now. The influencer space is so competitive, and she's been losing followers. She needs to rebrand, to find her authentic voice again. I made non-committal sounds while she continued. She needs something real, something grounded. And I thought, what could be more perfect than your cabin? She could do a whole series on connecting with nature, finding yourself in solitude, that kind of thing. Very thorough, very authentic. I explained that the cabin wasn't a vacation property. It was a working research station with sensitive equipment and ongoing studies that couldn't be disturbed. Her tone shifted immediately. Marcus, I'm not asking for much. Family helps family. Sophie has always been there for you. I asked when Sophie had ever been there for me. The silence was deafening before she recovered. She's always supported your work on social media, Mom said, though we both knew Sophie had never once mentioned my research to her followers. And honestly, Marcus, this could be good for you too. Some of Sophie's followers might become interested in conservation. You've never been good at self-promotion, that's just not who you are, but Sophie could help bring attention to your work. There it was. The familiar sting. Even when asking for a favor, she couldn't resist reminding me of my supposed inadequacies. I told her no. The cabin was off-limits. It wasn't just mine, it belonged to the birds I was studying, to the conservation work that actually mattered. You're being selfish, she said. I've spent my entire career helping people overcome their limiting beliefs, and here you are, my own son, stuck in yours. You hide behind your research because you're afraid of real human connection. Sophie doesn't have that problem. She knows how to engage with the world. I hung up on her. First time in my life. 20 minutes later, Sophie texted me, "Mom told me about the cabin. I really do need this, Marcus. My engagement is down 40%. I'm losing brand deals. You have no idea what it's like to have your entire career hanging by a thread. Can't you just let me use it for a few weeks? You could do your science stuff somewhere else for a bit." Your science stuff. 30 years of being minimized, condensed into 3 words. I didn't respond. This morning, I woke up to 47 messages. My mother had called various family members with her version of events. According to her, I was hoarding resources while Sophie's career crashed, being vindictive because of imagined childhood slights, and displaying antisocial behavior that concerned her as both a mother and a professional. My uncle texted, "Your mom says you won't let Sophie use your cabin. Seems pretty selfish, man. She's your sister." My cousin, "Why are you being so difficult? It's just a cabin." Even my father, who divorced Mom when I was 15 and usually stays out of her drama, sent, "Your mother is very upset. Maybe just consider it. Just a cabin. Just my life's work. Just the one place I've ever felt truly accomplished and valued. Just the physical proof that despite a lifetime of being told I lacked the fundamental qualities that make a person worthwhile, I had built something meaningful. I'm sitting here in my apartment, looking at my laptop showing the live feed from the research cameras at the cabin. A pileated woodpecker I've been tracking for 6 months just landed at the feeding station I built. She's one of only about 200 left in this region. She doesn't care that I lack charisma. She doesn't need me to be engaging or magnetic or whatever else my mother thinks makes a person valuable. She just needs me to show up, do the work, and protect her habitat. I'm not giving up my cabin. I'm not giving up my research. I'm not giving up the one place where my lack of charisma doesn't matter. But I'd be lying if I said it doesn't hurt that even now, at 30 years old, with a PhD and published research and actual contributions to environmental conservation, I'm still just the awkward kid who doesn't measure up to his sister's Instagram follower count. Update 1, 2 weeks later. I wanted to thank everyone who responded to my original post. Your comments and messages helped me realize I wasn't overreacting. Many of you shared similar experiences, and it's been both heartbreaking and validating to know I'm not alone. After reading your advice, I decided to install additional security cameras at the cabin, not just for wildlife monitoring, but for the property itself. It seemed paranoid at the time, but something about the intensity of my mother's reaction made me uneasy. She'd never been one to accept no easily, especially when she thought she was right. I'm glad I listened to my instincts. Last weekend, I drove up to the cabin to check on my equipment and continue my research. The motion sensors had been triggered multiple times during the week, which wasn't unusual. Deer, raccoons, and other wildlife regularly passed through. But when I reviewed the footage, my blood ran cold. Tuesday, 3:47 p.m. My mother's white Lexus pulled up to the locked gate. She got out, examined the lock, took photos from multiple angles, then drove away. Wednesday, 11:23 a.m. Mom returned with Sophie. They spent 20 minutes walking the perimeter of the property, with Sophie filming everything on her phone. At one point, clearly visible on the audio, Sophie said, "This is perfect. I can already see the transformation content. From sterile science station to wellness retreat." My mother responded, "The equipment alone must be worth $50,000. Your brother never did understand the value of money versus the value of impact. All this expensive technology just to watch birds nobody cares about." But Friday's footage was the worst. They returned with a man I didn't recognize. He had a toolbox and spent 30 minutes working on the gate lock while my mother kept watch and Sophie documented everything on her phone. They didn't manage to break in. I'd installed a heavy-duty lock system specifically designed for remote properties, but the conversation picked up by my cameras was devastating. The man said, "I can get through this, but it'll take better tools. The real money's in the equipment anyway. Research stuff like this resells high to universities in developing countries. No serial number tracking, untraceable. Could probably get 30, 40 grand easy. My own mother, replied. Perfect. Once Sophie's established here for her retreat series, we can say the equipment was stolen by random thieves. Marcus has insurance through his work, so he won't really lose anything. And honestly, it might be good for him. He hides behind all this technology instead of developing real connections. Sophie laughed. Plus, once I'm done with the content series, we could actually turn it into a real retreat space. Mom, you could run your workshops here. Finding your charisma in nature, that kind of thing. We'd be doing Marcus a favor, really, Mom added. Forcing him out of his comfort zone. Sometimes people need that push to grow. They left after the locksmith said he'd need to return with better equipment. I sat in my cabin for 3 hours after watching that footage, physically shaking. Not from anger, from the devastating realization that my mother wasn't just emotionally abusive, she was willing to commit actual crimes against me. The theft, the fraud, the conspiracy, all justified in her mind as being for my own good. I called my lawyer immediately. Yes, I have a lawyer. Another thing my therapist recommended after years of boundary violations. We discussed options, and she recommended I file a police report immediately and seek a restraining order. I also called my department head at the conservation organization. He was horrified and immediately offered institutional support. This is an attack on scientific research, he said. We take this very seriously. But before I went to the police, I had one more recording to review, from earlier that morning, just hours before I'd arrived. They came back. All 3 of them. The locksmith had heavier tools and was making progress when something unexpected happened. The resident murder of crows I'd been studying, 7 American crows who'd learned to associate my cabin with the peanuts I left out, descended on the intruders in full defensive mode. If you've never seen crows mob a perceived threat, it's intense. They dove, screeched, and one particularly bold crow, I call him Marcus Aurelius, actually struck Sophie's head repeatedly. Sophie ran screaming back to the car. The locksmith fled shortly after, shouting about crazy birds and hazard pay. My mother stood her ground for a moment, shouting at the crows with her arms waving, before a well-aimed deposit from Marcus Aurelius landed on her shoulder. As they drove away, the camera caught Sophie crying, her perfect makeup running, while my mother ranted about training those horrible birds to attack people and how this proved I had serious antisocial tendencies that needed intervention. The crows saved my cabin. The creatures I study, who don't care about charisma or Instagram followers, protected my work better than any family member ever protected me. I filed the police report yesterday. The detective was shocked when he saw the footage. This is conspiracy to commit burglary, attempted breaking and entering, conspiracy to commit insurance fraud, and given that this is a scientific research site, it could be elevated to attempted theft of scientific equipment, which is a federal matter. The restraining order was approved immediately. Both my mother and Sophie are legally barred from coming within 500 feet of me or my property. I sent the footage to select family members who'd called me selfish. The responses ranged from shock to silence. My uncle called to apologize profusely. My cousin texted, "Holy shit, Marcus. I had no idea. I'm so sorry." My father left me a voicemail, "I always knew your mother was difficult, but this. I should have protected you more when you were young. I'm sorry." Sophie posted on Instagram yesterday about taking a social media break to focus on personal growth and reflection. The comments are full of supportive messages about self-care. My mother posted on her life coaching page about the importance of boundaries, even with family who are struggling with their own demons. Neither of them know I have everything on camera. Neither of them know about the police report yet. They're about to learn that all the charisma in the world won't help when you're caught on camera planning a crime. Update 2, 1 month later. The past month has been a masterclass in watching 2 people who built their entire lives on image management completely implode when faced with reality. The police served my mother and Sophie with papers 3 days after my last update. According to my cousin who lives near my mother, the officers showed up during one of her charisma-intensive workshop sessions. 20 clients witnessed her being questioned about attempted burglary. She tried to play it off as a misunderstanding between family members, but one of the officers apparently said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "Ma'am, conspiracy to commit insurance fraud is not a family misunderstanding." Half her clients requested immediate refunds. Sophie's reaction was somehow worse. She went straight to social media with a tearful video about being persecuted for trying to help her brother, and how sometimes loving someone means pushing them out of their comfort zone. The video backfired spectacularly. Someone in the comments recognized the location she'd filmed at, my cabin gate, and connected it to a local news story about the attempted break-in at a wildlife research station. Within hours, #influencer burglary was trending locally. But the real dominoes started falling when the investigation expanded. The locksmith, facing serious charges, immediately flipped. He provided text messages, payment records, yes, my mother Venmo'd him with a note, lock consultation, and additional video he'd taken at Sophie's request for content. In one video, my mother explicitly says, once we're inside, we'll stage it to look like vandalism. Marcus is so antisocial, everyone will believe he made enemies. That video got leaked. I don't know by whom, maybe someone at the police station, maybe the locksmith himself, but it went viral on local Twitter with the headline, Life Coach Plans to Frame Own Son. The professional consequences were swift. The International Coach Federation, where my mother was credentialed, launched an immediate ethics investigation. Turns out, plotting to rob your child while calling it growth opportunity violates their professional standards. Who knew? She was suspended pending investigation, which meant she couldn't legally call herself a certified life coach. Her publisher, and I use that term loosely, it was a print-on-demand service, pulled her book after receiving hundreds of complaints. Her workshop venues canceled all upcoming events. 3 corporate clients who'd hired her for employee development seminars terminated their contracts. But the most damaging blow came from an unexpected source. Her own clients started comparing notes. A private Facebook group called Diana's Victims formed. Over 40 former clients shared stories of manipulation, boundary violations, and her using personal information shared in coaching sessions against them later. One woman posted screenshots of my mother threatening to expose her lack of authentic leadership to her employer if she left a negative review. Sophie's influencer career disintegrated even faster. Major brands have morality clauses in their contracts, and attempted burglary of a conservation site apparently violates those clauses. She lost 6 brand partnerships in a week. Her sustainable fashion sponsor released a brutal statement. We cannot partner with individuals who attempt to destroy scientific research stations that protect endangered species. The irony was delicious. Sophie had spent years cultivating an image of eco-consciousness, bamboo toothbrushes, metal straws, #SaveThePlanet hashtags, while planning to destroy actual conservation work for Instagram content. Her followers weren't forgiving. Her comment sections became war zones. Every post, no matter how innocuous, was flooded with bird emojis and, how's the burglary career going? She tried deleting comments, but they came faster than she could remove them. She lost 200,000 followers in 2 weeks. Then came the legal consequences. The district attorney decided to prosecute. The charges included conspiracy to commit burglary, attempted breaking and entering, conspiracy to commit insurance fraud, and, because my research is partially federally funded, attempted theft of government property. My mother tried to hire a high-profile lawyer, but her accounts were already hemorrhaging money from refunds and canceled contracts. She ended up with a public defender who looked exhausted before even meeting her. Sophie couldn't afford any lawyer and also got a public defender. Their strategy was predictable. Blame each other. Mom's lawyer argued Sophie manipulated her into helping with the break-in. Sophie's lawyer argued Mom was the mastermind who exploited Sophie's financial desperation. The locksmith's testimony made both arguments moot. He had recordings of them jointly planning everything. 2 weeks ago, they both took plea deals. My mother got 18 months supervised probation, 200 hours of community service, and $15,000 in fines. Sophie got 12 months probation, 150 hours of community service, and $10,000 in fines. Both have criminal records now. The Professional Licensing Board revoked my mother's life coaching certification permanently. She's legally barred from practicing any form of professional coaching or counseling in our state. Her social media presence evaporated. She went from 50,000 followers to less than 3,000, mostly people following for the drama. Sophie's Instagram account was banned after she violated terms of service by using it to harass witnesses. She drunk messaged the locksmith's wife, begging her to make him recant. Her TikTok lasted another week before being banned for promoting criminal activity, after she posted a rant about how conservation is just hoarding nature from people who could actually appreciate it aesthetically. The universe wasn't done with the irony, though. While all this was happening, my research was flourishing. The Crow incident had actually provided incredible behavioral data. I submitted a paper on cooperative mobbing behaviors in urban-adjacent crow populations that was fast-tracked for publication in Animal Behavior Journal. But the real breakthrough came from my quiet, undisturbed work at the cabin. I documented the first successful nesting of Pacific Northwest spotted owls in our region in 15 years. The footage and data were groundbreaking. The conservation organization nominated me for an Early Career Excellence Award. National Geographic contacted me about featuring my work in an upcoming documentary about endangered species recovery. Last week, I received word that I won the award. It comes with a $50,000 grant and, more importantly, recognition from the international conservation community. The ceremony is next month. They want me to give a keynote speech about my research and conservation methods. My department head called it the kind of recognition most researchers don't see until they're 20 years into their career. He also mentioned that my unique approach to long-term behavioral observation was being used as a model for other research stations. The journalism around the attempted break-in actually helped. Several national outlets picked up the story with headlines like "Researcher's Family Attempts to Destroy Conservation Site for Social Media Content" and "When Instagram Culture Attacks Science." I declined all interview requests, but my research organization's PR team skillfully directed attention to our conservation work. Donations to our organization increased 400% last month. We're able to fund 3 new research positions and expand our habitat protection program. My crow friends, Marcus Aurelius and his murder, have become minor celebrities in ornithology circles. There's talk of naming the new research positions after them. My therapist asked me how I felt about everything. The truth. Validated. Not happy. I take no joy in my mother and sister's downfall. But validated. For 30 years, I was told I lacked essential qualities that make a person valuable. That my worth was less than Sophie's because I couldn't command a room or build a social media following. But when the artificial metrics fell away, the followers, the workshop attendees, the manufactured charisma, what remained? My research still matters. The birds I protect still exist. The data I've collected will contribute to conservation efforts for decades. And them. When the filters and facades crumbled, there was nothing underneath but entitlement and criminality. I haven't spoken to either of them since this started. I don't plan to. My family keeps trying to encourage reconciliation, sending messages about forgiveness and family bonds. I delete them without reading. The restraining orders remain in place. The cabin is peaceful. The birds don't care about Instagram or life coaching or charisma. Neither do I anymore. Final update, 2 months later. I thought I was done updating, but something unexpected happened that feels like actual closure, so I wanted to share it one last time. The last 2 months have been the most professionally fulfilling of my life. The National Geographic documentary team spent 3 weeks at the cabin, and watching them work was surreal. The director kept saying things like revolutionary observation techniques and groundbreaking behavioral documentation. Me, the guy who lacks charisma, being called groundbreaking by actual documentary filmmakers. The keynote speech at the Conservation Award ceremony went better than I could have imagined. I was terrified. Public speaking was always something my mother said I was fundamentally unsuited for. But when I started talking about the spotted owls, about the delicate ecosystem we're protecting, about Marcus Aurelius and his crow family, something shifted. I wasn't performing or trying to be charismatic. I was just sharing what I loved with people who cared about the same things. The standing ovation lasted 3 minutes. My department head had tears in his eyes. The grant money has already been allocated to expand our research station network. But that's not why I'm writing this update. Yesterday, I received an email from Sophie. Not Instagram, not text, email. The subject line just said, "Please read." I almost deleted it. The restraining order includes digital contact, and I could have had her arrested. But something made me open it. Marcus. I'm writing this from a therapist's office. Dr. Kim is sitting across from me, making sure I actually send this. She says accountability is part of recovery, and I've been avoiding the hardest part, acknowledging what I did to you. I've been in intensive therapy for 2 months. After losing everything, I had what Dr. Kim calls a narcissistic collapse. I couldn't understand how my life fell apart so fast. I blamed you, the police, the locksmith, everyone but myself. But 3 weeks ago, Dr. Kim had me watch the security footage from your cabin. All of it, including our conversations. I threw up afterward. Actually, physically threw up. Seeing myself like that, hearing myself talk about your work like it was worthless, planning to rob you while laughing about it, I didn't recognize that person, but I couldn't deny it was me. Dr. Kim helped me understand something I should have seen years ago. Mom is deeply unwell. Her life coaching is actually a framework for her narcissistic personality disorder. She built her entire identity around being superior to others, and she raised us as extensions of her ego. I was the golden child who reflected her supposed charisma. You were the scapegoat who proved her theories about what happens without it. Neither of us were ever real people to her. We were just props in her performance. I'm not making excuses. I chose to participate. For 28 years, I chose to accept the benefits of being her favorite while watching her destroy you. Every time she humiliated you at family dinners, I felt relieved it wasn't me. When she praised my social media while dismissing your PhD, I felt special instead of sick. I convinced myself it was just sibling rivalry, not systematic abuse. Dr. Kim made me list every instance I could remember of Mom abusing you while I watched or participated. Marcus, the list was 17 pages long. Single-spaced. I remember when you won that science fair at 12. You were so proud, and Mom spent the entire celebration dinner talking about how I'd won a beauty pageant the week before, even though it was just a tiny local thing for little kids. You stopped mentioning your academic achievements after that. I remember when you got into MIT for graduate school, and Mom's first response was to ask if they had lower standards for antisocial types to promote diversity. You didn't even celebrate. You just quietly accepted and left. I remember 1,000 tiny moments where she broke you down, and I either helped or stayed silent because it benefited me. The theft attempt wasn't an isolated incident. It was just the culmination of 3 decades of me believing I was entitled to whatever you had because Mom said so. Your cabin, your peace, your accomplishments. Part of me genuinely believed they were wasted on you because you weren't using them for social media content. I'm so fucked up, Marcus. I'm 28 years old and just now learning that other people exist as full humans, not supporting characters in my Instagram story. I've never had a real friend. Every relationship was transactional. Every emotion was performed. Without social media, I don't know who I am. Without Mom directing me, I don't know what to want. Dr. Kim says this is actually good, that I can rebuild from nothing instead of from lies. I'm working now. Real work. I'm a receptionist at a veterinary clinic. It pays barely anything, but the vet knows my story and hired me anyway. He says everyone deserves a second chance. I clean kennels, answer phones, comfort scared animals. Nobody knows about my Instagram past. I'm just Sophie, the girl who's good with nervous cats. It's the first honest work I've ever done. Sometimes I watch the vet techs and think about going back to school. Maybe doing something real, something that helps. I know you'll probably never forgive me, and I don't deserve forgiveness anyway. But I wanted you to know that I finally see it. All of it. The cruelty, the manipulation, the years of participating in Mom's abuse of you. I see how extraordinary your work is. I've been reading your published papers. I need a dictionary for half the words, but I'm trying to understand. You're saving species. Actually saving entire species from extinction. While I was posting smoothie bowls, you were preserving ecosystems. You didn't lack anything, Marcus. We lacked the ability to see your value because Mom programmed us to only value performance and manipulation. I won't contact you again unless you explicitly want me to. The restraining order is still active, and I'll respect it completely. But if you ever want to talk, in a year, in 10 years, never, I'll be here. The real me, whoever that turns out to be. I'm sorry. It's inadequate, but it's true. Sophie. P.S. The crows were amazing. I know I screamed and ran, but watching that footage later, they were protecting you and your work. You earned their loyalty just by being yourself. That's real charisma. I read it 4 times. Then I sat at my desk and cried for an hour. Not sad tears, complicated tears. Relief that she finally saw it. Grief for the relationship we could have had. Anger that it took losing everything for her to understand. Hope that maybe, somehow, healing was possible. I wrote back. Sophie, thank you for writing this. I can't offer forgiveness yet, I'm not there. Maybe I'll never be there. But I acknowledge your apology and the work you're doing. Continue therapy. Build something real. Learn who you are without Mom's voice in your head. Maybe someday we can have coffee and talk about things that aren't Instagram or past trauma. Maybe not. Time will tell. Take care of the nervous cats. They deserve kindness. Marcus. P.S. The crow's name is Marcus Aurelius. He's remarkable. My therapist says this exchange was a huge step for both of us. Sophie acknowledging the abuse validates my experience in a way nothing else could. Me responding without either attacking or immediately forgiving shows I'm learning boundaries. Mom, predictably, has learned nothing. She started a new Instagram account under a different name, trying to rebuild as a redemption coach, helping people overcome false accusations. She has 47 followers. Most seem to be bots. The restraining order was quietly extended after she was caught driving past the cabin by accident 3 times in a week. The local police know her car now. The conservation organization installed additional security. The crows remain vigilant. I'm headed to the cabin tomorrow to begin a new study on owl vocalizations. The documentary will air next month. 3 universities have reached out about collaboration opportunities. My research assistant starts Monday, a shy, brilliant woman who cares more about data than social skills. Sometimes I still hear Mom's voice in my head, telling me I'm too awkward, too antisocial, too lacking in charisma to succeed. But then I remember Marcus Aurelius defending my cabin, the standing ovation at the conference, the spotted owls nesting safely, the thousands of people who will learn about conservation through the documentary. Turns out charisma isn't about commanding a room or gaining followers. It's about showing up consistently for what matters. It's about earning the trust of crows and the respect of peers. It's about building something real while others perform. I spent 30 years believing I lacked something essential. Now I know the truth. I had everything I needed all along. It just took the right environment to flourish. Like the endangered species I study, sometimes we just need someone to protect our habitat and give us space to be exactly what we are. Thank you all for following this journey. Your support and validation helped me more than you know. Now if you'll excuse me, I have owls to study. End note, this is where I would normally end it, but for those asking, yes, the documentary was incredible. Yes, Marcus Aurelius made it into the final cut and became somewhat of a celebrity bird. Yes, Sophie is still working at the vet clinic and recently enrolled in community college for veterinary technology. No, Mom has not learned anything and is now selling coaching sessions for $25 on Fiverr with 0 reviews. And yes, the spotted owl successfully raised 3 owlets, the first in our region in over a decade. Sometimes the best revenge really is just living well and protecting what matters.